What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Park Baseball 26, where we're attempting to rebuild the Pittsburgh Pirates. I am joining you from November 8th, 2026, where the playoffs have concluded and Atlanta takes the World Series over the Twins in a series that went the full 7 games. Congrats to the Braves and series MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. But our Pirates were not so fortunate to make the playoffs this season. A bit of a letdown for us, but now we turn our attention toward the offseason and all of the exciting opportunities that await. Before we get started, I just wanted to say thanks for watching these videos. I really appreciate your support. If you keep finding yourself back here, I would appreciate any likes on the video you could give. Those go a long way in the boosting the reach of the channel, and it just brings more people into the community. And I'm eager to talk about the team in the comments as well. So let me know your thoughts on everything we talk about today. But I guess I wanted to sort of set your expectations for the video. So the overall plan is to sort of just table set everything for the off season to this point. I've done some work off camera to get us in a good position to where we're not actually making any decisions while I'm recording. So everything's already been taken care of, and I'm just going to kind of review my thought process on it all. And then that involves our arbitration strategy, our development lab players, and then we'll sort of turn our attention ahead to kind of review our team needs ahead of free agency. And as we go through the off-season awards in the next couple of days, we'll go over those. And then I think we'll end the video just looking at who's available in free agency and how those players might fit into our puzzle here. But the first thing I wanted to touch on was a couple of pieces of mail we received at the end of the season. First and foremost, we have a budget of $186 this year, which is above our initial budget last year. I think it was $176 at the start of the offseason last year. Obviously, we got another boost toward the end of the offseason that brought our available money up to $190. So it's a bit of a decrease year over year in that sense, but depending on our moves, our owner may feel a little more generous toward the end of the offseason and give us a little bit more money. The other bit of news, you may have seen it here, but this is actually pretty detrimental. Our fan loyalty has dropped from, I believe, previously it was minimal, and now it's down to pathetic. So it's going to be even more difficult for us to fill seats in the stadium and, get those season ticket sales through preseason and spring training. You can see our fan interest, while we boosted it up with a charity donation last year, has regressed back to near where it was. I think it was 54, then we bumped up to 63, and now it's back to 56. So we're sort of ping-ponging in this middle ground. I'm hopeful that a couple of our decisions this offseason can help boost this back up, but definitely not a good development with the loyalty dropping to pathetic. But other news from our owner, we have a new set of goals here. The same team record goal is applying. He wants us to be close to 500. The Paul Skeens goal is back. I am going to leave it for now just to see, because we have, he's in his arbitration years and we've offered him a 1-year renewal. I'm curious if that will qualify for this goal or not. If it does, great, we get points. If it doesn't, we'll look to discuss it. And I think this is more achievable for us, is just to acquire an all-star player sometime over the next 3 years. So depending how the game chooses to react to our 1-year contract renewal for Skeens, we'll determine what we plan to do with this. But the other goals, nothing pressing this year other than to improve our record in road games. But long term, we're looking to increase our attendance, which will be pretty challenging given the drop in loyalty. Improve our draft record. We'll start to get guys we drafted onto the team by 2029, and then fan interest, and reach the playoffs by 2031. So still quite the runway. He is happy, so I think we'll be fine for the short term. Nothing too major. We did achieve one goal. He wanted us to build up our farm system, and that's no longer here. And that's because when the prospects were updated, we have the top 2 prospects in all of Major League Baseball in Danny Jimenez and Connor Griffin, which is crazy. I've never had a farm system like this in my years of playing out of the park. So we are far and away at the top of the points system here, with Jimenez first, Griffin second, and then our newly drafted Alex Harrington at 27, with Omar Alfonso coming in at 44. So there's a lot to like here. If we go to our, overall farm system ranks, I wish there was a better screen to see this, but 4 top 100 guys and 7 in the top 200. Victor Nevares is just creeping in. Edward Florentino, we've never really touched on him, but he's a lefty outfielder who, I'm not exactly sure where he came from, but he's been playing in the DSL, and he looks like he's developing pretty well at just 19, almost 20. And then Yordani De Los Santos, who we've looked at before, is kind of just like an average guy, but he's nearing a call up with all these ratings approaching 45, 50. So he'll probably start the next season in AA, and then we'll see how he performs there. But no other major guys jumping in. We have Nate Snead and Wyatt Sanford, who we like. Quentin Young is still kind of on the outside looking in. And then some of our other pitchers, Finn McElroy, Tyler August, who we took in the second round of this year's draft, also make an appearance. But those are the prospect rankings in terms of other guys here that are notable. Ethan Holiday is there, and Zion Rose, who was just drafted after Alex Harrington, is a top 10 prospect. So that's sort of the overview from an ownership front office perspective. Obviously, we also have arbitration and our development facilities open. So let's dive into ARB first. We've made some decisions here. Obviously, not as many guys up for arbitration this year as last year, and but we do have some big ones. We have Paul Skeens looking to hit his first ARB year, and as you can see, it's pretty inflated. And when I was negotiating contracts with him, I just gave him a flat $7 million deal. I didn't want to take it into arbitration to, potentially have this number be higher. He was initially demanding close to $8 million, so I felt like 7 was a good middle ground for him. So we've offered him a 1-year, $7 million renewal that he's considering. Colin Holderman, we're going to non-tender. I was just kind of workshopping the future of our bullpen, and I don't think we have room for a 40-grade guy at that salary. A little bit of regression in his stuff year over year, not the best season on the field for us, negative WAR player, so we're going to let him go at age 31. We are going to bring back Carmen Majinski, as he is just 27. It's his first ARB year, and I was sort of weighing, should we, shouldn't we? I ended up offering him a contract because of this movement. We like that it's slightly above average at 55, and that he's a ground ball pitcher with good velocity. So he does have flexibility, 1 option year left. If it doesn't work out, we can send him down. But I liked that he was a positive WAR player for us last year. I think he can be middle relief to long relief for us next season. And then I was going back and forth on Johan Oviedo. I ended up offering him a 1-year renewal as well, because I'm thinking his expectation is to play in the bullpen, and I still wouldn't mind having the option. Should we experience starting pitcher injuries, I think it would make sense for him to step into that role. I don't know that he's a leverage arm in the bullpen. I think he's more long to middle relief, but with his expectation changing, I was willing to consider a contract for him at I think 2.7 mil. So as sort of a swingman kind of guy, I don't mind it to bring him back. Henry Davis, We also renewed on a 1-year deal for like 2.3. He may fit in as like, honestly, I'm thinking he may DH for us because like his fielding stats were pretty detrimental last year. I don't know that we want him as our everyday catcher, and he doesn't really fit in anywhere else. So I think maybe DH, catcher backup, will be his sort of role next year. Triolo, we're going to non-tender. I think we're kind of done with this experiment, ground ball hitter. I just don't like it. Even though he is a positive WAR player, the 600 OPSs are, getting on my nerves. So we're done with him. And then the big one is O'Neal Cruz, who is in his, second ARB year. So we would have him under team control next season and the year after, 2 years of team control. But what we've decided to do with our newly popular player is to offer him a 5-year contract extension, which takes him through his age 32 season, so he can still hit free agency again at a relatively, attractive age. And we're not tied to him super long term, but the deal for him is, I felt like it was decently affordable. We're saving a little bit of money in the short term, like going under on his next couple of ARB years, and then I believe in his non-contract or his non-ARB years, we're going like up to close to $17 million a year for him. So we can look at the contract once he signs it. I expect him to sign it. It's a 5-year, $67.5 million deal. So we bought out 3 years of his post-arbitration. So I like having him around for the long haul. I think he's just going to be like the face of the franchise, or at least, pending any strikeout regression, he should be the face of the franchise for us. So excited to bring him back long term. I think it's going to give us a boost with the fans as well. And then, nobody's up for QO, and we've gone through and sort of picked out a couple minor league renewals we're going to try to bring back. But that's the plan for now. Cutting Triolo, cutting Holderman. In terms of our player development, we've set up the dev lab here, and it's mostly minor league guys. Only a couple guys at the majors that I felt like had untapped potential for us, or made sense to give run here. The first is the newly, he hasn't signed yet, but we'll say the newly signed O'Neal Cruz, the newly extended. We are going to try to bring up the 2-strike approach this year. I just, he's made very minor improvements year over year, which I like. He's not getting actively worse, but hopefully we're, hoping for an outstanding result to boost the potential. But I think even if it's just a regular result and it's up to 45, he's going to play much better for us next season. Bubba Chandler is our other guy. We're not giving up on Bubba. He had kind of a rough first full year at the majors after a strong taste in 2025, but I'm looking at his profile, and I think he just lacks another strikeout dominant pitch. So we're doing secondary pitch improvement to try to improve one of these, to average or above. Only 8K per 9 is not what I think of when I think of Bubba Chandler. I really want it to be, double digits, ideally like maybe 12 per 9, but I think it's just the program that makes the most sense for him. The movement and control are pretty much there, so hopefully he can improve his slider or changeup or curve or something like that. We're going back to Termar here. He was up and down, if you remember from our stat review, a couple good months, and then kind of ended the season coldly. I think, we want to tap into more of this power. We still see 10 points of upside here. I considered contact and gap power as well, but I kind of just like the idea of turning him into a lefty, good eye power bat. So hopefully he can, he was successful with the program last year, so maybe he's familiar with how it works and can be successful again this year. And then Thomas Harrington, I talked myself into, just because he's so young and on team control, with his current ratings where they are, we're doing secondary pitch improvement again to try to improve his stuff a little bit more. if he can get, everything right now is below average. If he can get 2 of his pitches to average or above, I think it's going to benefit him. Similar story to Bubba. He's only striking out like 8 per 9. So I think it makes the most sense for him, and, him being durable and still so young with a ton of team control, I don't mind committing, resources to his development. But then we get into the minor league guys. First thing first, I was looking through, and similar to last year, we have another injury here with Nate Snead, which is really unfortunate because we view him as a 50-grade potential guy now. But I don't know when this happened. On September 2nd, he had suffered a torn labrum. So I guess it was this start, the final game of the year, which is just brutal that he would go down with such a long-term injury in the final game of the year and at the high A level. But we really like how he's come along for us. Only made 2 starts there this year, but I felt like we could push him there from an attribute perspective. He was kind of sitting in A-ball all year and got off to kind of a rough start that sort of damaged his stat line. But when we were looking at his ratings relative to the league, we felt like high A was where he needed to be. And I would have committed resources to him, again, this offseason to help keep boosting that control up. But unfortunately, that was kind of off the table with the torn labrum injury there. So we couldn't fit him in, but we found enough work here. Quentin Young, we're still committing to. We're going to do quality of contact with him. He had a brutal year in rookie ball, just striking out a ton. He did walk a ton, but wasn't able to get the bat to ball stuff working. So we've a couple things. We've pivoted him to full-time third base. I think that's just where he fits in for us long term now. And we look at his ratings relative to the rookie league. They're all 45, so he should be able to play on his own there. But I'm looking ahead to where he would stack up in A-ball should he get pushed there late next year, and I'm seeing deficiencies in the contact, and you could say the eye as well. So, we're going to do quality of contact. I hope that he can tap into a little bit more here and see some success at the A-ball level by the end of next year. And we really don't want the contact tool slipping too much further with him if we're still viewing him as one of our top-end prospects. So that's sort of the thought process there. Connor Griffin, similar thing. We're also doing quality of contact with him. And it's because at high A, he also struggled with the sort of bat to ball stuff. He had 10 triples, which is outrageous, and nearly 20 doubles. So the extra base hits are certainly there with the 17 homers, and the 2.7 WAR with the defense is really good. But we're sort of trying to preempt any potential contact regression with him. And similar thing here, even at the high A level, his contact bat to ball tool is only graded at a 40. So that's only going to get more challenging should we push him to double A at some point next season. So I don't really know what the plan will be. I don't know what level we're going to start him off at next year. I guess it's pending his development in the off season, but I sort of felt like that made the most sense for what we want him to work on. And then we have Alex Harrington here, our new, hopefully Bobby Witt Jr.-esque draftee. We've gotten a little more info on him. Now we see him as more of a 70 grade guy instead of a true 80 grade. But, you still love this profile at short. He's the 27th prospect in baseball. So we look at his ratings relative to rookie ball, and I'm thinking okay, we want to get ahead of this 40 grade bat to ball contact tool. So that's what we're pushing for him as well. A lot of quality of contact programs across the development lab for us this year. We think there's still above average upside there as well. So we want to maintain that. So hopefully we get a strong result in the dev lab. I don't mind the lack of power with him. I think we're just looking for gap power and defense out of him long term. So not really concerned about, resources to boost his bat speed or something like that. This next guy, Gavin Turley, I think I mentioned in a previous video that he had a monster season for us in the minors, and we're going to reward that with a two-strike approach program. But you just look at these like numbers, and I think like we need righty bats ultimately. Not that he would debut next season, but good outfield defense, righty bat, gap power. Like he could be really good, and you look at these stats across 2 years in the minors, like super strong debut, and then last year hit 27 homers across both levels with near 90 plus RBI. He's good on the base path, stealing, but like if I had to poke a hole in his game, right, it's obviously this strikeout rate. So we're gonna have him work on that. I'm just wanting to reward his performance, and we see him as a 50 grade potential guy now. So I'm like cautiously optimistic he can turn into like an O'Neal Cruz-esque player for us down the line, but like with better defense potentially. So we're gonna give him run with a two-strike approach program, and then similar story like in terms of like rewarding strong seasons. Wyatt Sanford again, this like near 21-year-old kid at high A last year had a 3.4 WAR and OPS to over 900. All of these ratings close to 45. Like he could be knocking on the door of like making the major leagues. So the thought process here is like, okay, he's already, hitting the ball at high A, so he likely is going to start in the Eastern League AA for us. And I'm looking at like all of these ratings, like they're pretty good, honestly. I don't know that we're ever going to get power out of him, and I don't really care. I think we want gap power with his speed and base running to be a little better. So given it's a medium difficulty program, I kind of wanted to play it a little safer with him. So the idea is hopefully we get some sort of outstanding result and, get a boost in his gap power potential. So I kind of like the idea of that with the, combine the low strikeouts with a little bit of gap power, good eye contact defense. He's not far off now at just 21, but I wanted to reward his strong play. And then the last spot was really sort of challenging. I think we would have done Nate Snead had he been available. I didn't want to do any of our players on loan in the fall league just because I was reading that should they have suffered any sort of injury while playing in the fall league, it would have halted their Dev League progress. So that sort of took our catcher Omar Alfonso off the board, and also the pitcher Skylar Hales. It sort of took him out of the running. So when I was circling back to what prospects made sense, I wasn't really a lot of these guys are just so far away that I wasn't willing to spend the time on them. It's unfortunate. Dean Curley was the guy who just missed out. He hasn't had the best seasons. He had a great A-ball season, but then we pushed him to high A, and he was kind of figuring it out, striking out at a big rate there. So, I would have loved to do, a program with him, but ultimately I found somebody I liked better, and you can see it's Zane Petty down here. But I'm just scrolling through and looking for, any of the. We could have done our draftees, like Tyler August, our new pitching draftee, maybe would have made sense, but. I think he will get development from performing. I wanted to build on the strong momentum of Zane Petty, who ever since drafting him, he has shoved across every level. Last year he got run at A-ball and high A, sub 3 ERA in both. The whip is really strong. The FIP is good. He's striking guys out, which we like, leaving runners on base. There's a lot to like here. And the program we chose was secondary pitch improvement again, because we're thinking ahead. Given his strong performance at high A, it's, and he's a 50 grade, it's likely, I think, that he gets some run at double A next year. And I'm looking at his deficiencies, and he only has one average pitch there. So the idea is that we want to give him at least 2 pitches that are above average, so he can strike guys out there at that level. So I'm not sure which one will end up improving, but that's sort of the thought process. I think he can get away with the 40 control. So far to this point, he's kept the walks in check, but that was also something I considered, obviously, with him. But maybe our 8th round pick here out of Texas Tech has some life in him. He could potentially factor for us down the road. You like the 4-pitch mix. Everything is projected to be above average. So I just felt like that was a good, I wanted to do something pitching related, like with our prospects. So I felt like that was the best option available to us. So that was sort of a lengthy explanation of the Dev Lab. I sort of wanted to double it as like just a prospect stat sort of check-in, but this is going to be the plan. We'll hope for good results. Last year we were really fortunate getting a ton of guys with outstanding results, but let me know if you would have chosen any different programs here or if everything makes sense. Next in the, plans here, I'm gonna go off cam and simulate a lot of these awards, and we'll check back to review how those go, see if we get any acknowledgement for towards our guys, and I'll update you all on the contracts that we've offered at the same time when we come back. So stay tuned. I'll be back in just a sec. What's up, guys? We are back. As you can see, we've moved through the awards season, and I'm just going to recap you all on a number of things that have happened in the meantime. First of all is we did ink O'Neal Cruz to his 5-year contract, and the fans are pleased. So you can see how we kind of structured this. We're going 6.5, 8.5, and then 17.5 for 3 seasons of post-ARB. So I'm happy with this. He's a popular player. He's well known. When we signed him, the fans were pretty excited. The overall fan interest increased slightly. We also brought back Oviedo and Davis on their deals, and Majinski as well. Next, we moved on, and Paul Skeens re-upped for his 1-year deal. Again, just a $7 million deal with a all-star bonus of $150K. Nothing too crazy, but the fans are, super excited to have him back. The interest increase is amazing. And when we go back here to see, we've jumped all the way back up to 64 on the fan interest meter. So it's kind of a cheap way of doing it, I guess. But, everyone is happy with our signings. And additionally, we've met the goal of extending Paul Skeens. So presumably, as long as we don't trade him at the deadline, we'll get credit for this going into next offseason. And, that it'll just, help with our job security in the long run. So kind of a cheap way of getting that done as well. But the other thing that happened during this period was we received a DM from our scout. You'll remember Brody Van Wangenen we poached off the market in our first offseason. He's been approached about the GM job in Washington, and he wants a promotion or an extension, and I was unable to offer him an extension. He just wasn't really interested in it, so he ended up moving on. We offered him the same deal that he was on, but just over a longer period of time, and he was kind of, not about it. So he ended up going to Washington. But he gave us a nice note. His 2 years in Pittsburgh were some of the best of his life. So all the best to Brody in D.C., but that leaves us without a scouting director. So we were sort of scrambling to find somebody good. I was looking at the market, and a lot of the good talent was unavailable, but I found AJ Preller there, who had been let go from the Padres. And, he's another toolsy guy who is not quite as good as Brody was for us. I believe Brody was excellent across all of these, and Preller is just good at major and minor league. But like I said, there were not many good options available, so we decided to bring him on for a 5-year deal. Just 49, so not a retirement risk really. Happy to, I guess, bring him on board. As long as he's not making any crazy trades for us, we'll be good. And then we plugged some holes in our minor league system with coaches who had chosen to retire. At the majors, we did make one change at third base. We brought in Alfredo Mateo, who is like a potential manager or bench coach down the line, but we like the good in-game running and the outstanding teaching of defense we feel is going to be an upgrade for us. So we brought him in. He's got good relationships with almost everyone, and he's a great fit in our coaching staff. So previously we were running Tarek Brock at both of these spots with just excellent. So a little tiny upgrade there to outstanding, but now we are good across the board. And, no one is, there are no personality clashes here apart from our trainer, which doesn't really, like the trainer and scouting director don't really impact anything in the clubhouse. At least that's my kind of understanding of things. So bit of a minor change there. Other news that has happened since then. So we lose our scouting. We're in the process of now, super annoying, but recanvassing our whole org. But the AFL season sort of wrapped. There's no one left on the team there. But if you'll remember, our prospect Skylar Hales was there, and he's really the only one I care about monitoring, how his performance went. So it went pretty well if you see this bottom line, just the development league stat line. So he only got 11 innings. The ERA is, maybe a little high, but the whip looks good. The FIP looks outstanding. He didn't give up any homers, which is the biggest issue that we fear with him. And he struck out 9 per 9. So all around, I think productive time spent there. We'll see how he looks in spring training and if he can crack the roster out of camp. But no other major updates from the fall league. We're kind of, like I said, just re-scouting all of our guys. But I did want to go over awards before we keep moving forward a little bit here. The first award, obviously, is Gold Gloves. If we go down here you can see the AL. Nothing too surprising here. A lot of, guys you think of as being good defenders. Nothing for us in the NL. Rafi takes it at first base, which is funny. No repeat for Spencer Horwitz this year, unfortunately. Let's see. Reliever of the year, Johan Duran in the AL takes it in a pretty decisive win, and the Dodgers kind of split here. Tanner Scott and Blake Trinan still holding it down at 38, but no love for us in the reliever awards either. Silver Sluggers in the AL, bit of a regression from Cal Raleigh, but hard to repeat a 10-war season previously. But you can see nothing too surprising here. I mean, Stuart Fairchild is probably the most surprising guy here, but somehow pushed out 27 in KC. That's impressive. Nothing for us in the NL either, so really quiet award season for us, and no big surprise. Alec Boehm hit 300, so maybe that's the surprise there. As far as rookies, Blake Mitchell in the AL, clean sweep. Sebastian Walcott did debut, and I looked at his stat line. It's pretty awesome. 17 homers, 75 RBI, hit 275, 127 WRC plus. So he's fully arrived at just a little over 20 and a half years old. So that's impressive. He did not win though. In the NL, it's Alex Freeland at the Dodgers, beating out Hamasaki, who we kind of considered and ended up signing with the Mets. So yeah, he never really hit any homers, only 9 homers, but pushed 44 doubles and hit 280, all said for 4.1 WAR. So he's obviously a good player. It's just we were not looking to tie ourselves to him long term. We were a little afraid. Nothing for us in terms of managing. Rocco Baldelli and Jose Cabrera of the Braves now. Arizona Fall League best player went to Max Clark. No love for us. Ethan Lage is very bottom ballot for us, but 2 Tigers at the top. Bryce Rayner there as well. And then Cy Young in the AL goes to DeGrom. Beats out Skubal. Gregory Soto is here somehow. In the NL, Logan Webb gets his revenge. He just lost, if you remember, last season. Paul Skeens narrowly beat him. He comes back this year, takes it, and Skeens does not show at all, which, unsurprising given his stat line. Judge takes MVP in the AL, so he's back on the throne, and his season was crazy. 57 homers, hit 300, led every slash line in the AL, 7.3 WAR. So he's still doing awesome. And in the NL, Shohei again reigns supreme. 52 homers this year, 144 RBIs, OPSing over 1,000, and on the mound made 28 starts. Brought his ERA down and his FIP down, striking out 10 per 9. So super solid season from Shohei, still doing Shohei things. So those are the awards. I'm going to keep pushing on to the, through arbitration and free agency, although, we're pretty much done with ARB, so there's no more updates there. Next time I check in, we will be at the free agency filings, and we can review if there are any interesting international free agents and just look at the kind of entire pool together and kind of review our needs and plan out how we want to attack. But I'll be back with that in just a sec. Stay tuned. Okay, y'all, what's up? We are back at the start of free agency here, and after all is said and done with the arbitration and renewals, we are sitting at $17 million in available money. So not, near as much as we had in the previous off season. A lot of our guys are starting to get into higher and higher salaries. So we still have some room to make some additions, but when we think about kind of the team needs and zoom out a little bit, if we go to sort of just the lineup, this is kind of how I have it set currently. Thinking about we like Davis as a bat, hypothetically, but we don't necessarily want him playing defense, so what if he were to DH? And then Reynolds kicks out to left, and then we go Reynolds, Mullins, Cruz. These are pretty much locked. And then we don't like Hayes, but we're, handcuffing ourselves with his contract. So I don't think he needs to start necessarily. What I sort of, cooked up was a hypothetical platoon of Termar is the everyday third baseman against right-handed pitching, and then Cabrian slots in against lefties, because you got to keep in mind we have Nick Gonzalez, who's coming back from Tommy John. He'll be at second, and so that would, I hate to yank Termar all around like this. Ideally we want him in left field, I think, but I'm just I don't know where Reynolds fits in if he's not playing the outfield, because we don't want Davis catching, and Horwitz is at first. It's kind of a log jam, but this is sort of how I have it constructed now. And then of course that leaves Leo Verpagero as our shortstop again, which isn't maybe the most ideal, but he was good there defensively last year, so maybe it wouldn't be that bad. But I guess I'm sort of thinking if we could find a good righty DH that would kick Davis and Rodriguez back to just a platoon catching situation, I would be interested in that potentially, if it's the right player, a good right-handed bat, because we are so lefty heavy just across the board with Horwitz, Johnson, Cruz, Mullins. I think we need another righty. So I'd either be looking for that person to DH or potentially play a corner outfield spot, and then, that would bump Reynolds back to DH. So I'm sort of looking at that. I think third base would be fine with Termar and Cabrian platooning. And then we have Gonzalez, obviously, with the firm hold on second base. Horwitz locked down first. I think we like Endy as our catcher next season. His defense has improved. So shortstop, if there's someone good on the market, I could be convinced to sign a good shortstop potentially, and then Peguero slots into like a backup up the middle role. We also have Jack Brannigan, who last year did not really impress, but we do like his defense, and he's cheap on a minor league deal, so it's feasible he could be the backup. As far as backup outfield, we have G1 Bay still, who, given his performance last year, I think I'm content to bring him back as a, player on the minimum who can fill in the outfield. And then we also have Rule 5 pick Barossa, who we may just sit in AAA and call up as needed. So I don't really think we're in desperate need of a backup outfielder. We could look, again, at shortstop and then right-handed DH. So that's sort of where my head's at as far as bats go. On the pitching side, I don't know that we have a huge starter need. Again, I'm pretty committed to running out these 5 guys here. And then we have Oviedo in a long relief role. And then in the middle relief, we have Majinski, Burrows, Ashcraft. I like all 3 of these guys as just steady arms. We are going to move Ashcraft into a reliever role. So I'm curious if his stuff ticks up at all, and it does slightly, so that's good. But we like him in relief, I think. All of them are pretty, safe against both sides, lefty and righty. And they've, had a good track record with us previously. I guess Majinski could be on the chopping block. I know we just re-signed him to an ARB deal of $2.2 million, but I think he's a guy we can kind of push up and down if needed, if we find some bullpen arms that we like. In terms of leverage roles, we have Jason Adams still, who continues to see velocity drops, which the writing is on the wall here that he's heavily regressing, and I almost just think he's going to be DFA'd at the end of spring training. So I don't really want to bank on him being available to us. If he performs well in spring, sure, we can keep him until he really starts to fall apart in the regular season. But I don't want to count on him being a leverage arm, essentially. I still like Caleb Ferguson in that role just because he's so good at keeping it in the park, and he's been good for us historically, good against both sides. So I think he's safe. His role is safe. I think we would be looking for maybe 2 leverage righties potentially to bring in. And then in terms of lefty specialist, we have Dalton Rogers, who looks like he's grown facial hair. I don't know if that's different or if that's always been there, but I just noticed it. And, he's fine. I don't know that he's ready I still kind of want to put him in AAA for a full season and have him go to work there because, he is good, but I think I just want something a little bit more for sure at the major league level. And same with Hunter Barco. We don't have much money to work with, so if we spend it all on the back of the bullpen, I guess it is reasonable that Barco could come up and take the lefty role full time. So we'll kind of just see how it goes. But overall needs, I'm looking at a right-handed power bat and a couple of back-end righty relievers. So let's take a look and see what's on the market. As if I've obviously already looked, so this is not my first time seeing it, but we're going to pretend. In terms of the international market this year, there are a couple interesting guys. The first of which is Mike Gallegos, who is a 22, near 23-year-old pitching prodigy from Cuba. He's durable. He throws mid to upper 90s. He has good stamina. It's odd that his primary pitch is a below-grade curveball and then changeup splitter cutter, so he really only has one pitch with any velocity on it. But he's a control artist who keeps the ball in the park, at least according to our low scouting accuracy. And he actually wants like a pretty reasonable contract given his age. But I don't think we're going to play here. I know it's probably it could be frustrating, I guess, if you just, see this 70 grade potential and the age and are, like, how could you pass this guy up, right? But we just don't need starting pitching, so I'm content to spend our money elsewhere, but he's definitely an interesting prospect that we'll have to follow. The next guy here, Shosei Fujimoto, is actually super interesting to me because he's a 6'2" righty from Japan, still pretty young, 23, and we look at this and we think, okay, this has potential to be at least like a middle relief bullpen arm with potential leverage upside. He's only a 2-pitch mix guy, which gives me some pause. Fastball, slider. Usually that combination will get kind of destroyed against lefties rather. But I look at the ratings. I think his home run rate may save him in that sense. Should all of this pan out, we have very low scouting accuracy on him, and it's going to take a long time to get our scouting report back. I don't think I'm willing to wait on the scouting report to get back, given he only wants 1.3, and if we offer him a contract, he just wants a minor league deal with the major league option. I think it's likely we move on him early, even though we don't have a full scouting report. So we'll try to bring him on board. There's just so much to like here with, the good stamina, the good at holding runners. Even if all of this were to regress, I think it would be interesting to bring him on board at the very least. And then, we kind of have him under team control. Other guys here, there's not too much. There are a couple bats. We have Mitsuhisa Yamashita, the 32-year-old second baseman who we have tried to scout. He's not much of a defender, but I was saying I'm interested in a righty, potential DH bat. I'm not sure he's the perfect fit for us, but he does bring a little bit of power and eye. So we'll see how the scouting report comes back. Again, he's not super expensive either, so he's potentially interesting. There's Mr. Yamamoto here, also a second baseman, but absolutely no pop in the bat. Very contact focused, and he's a ground ball hitter, which I don't love, but he's better at defense. I don't think we're interested in that. And then in terms of outfielders, there's really not much. So I think we're interested in Fujimoto. We'll look to, get on his radar in some capacity in between episodes, but in terms of free agents at the major league level, we can take a look. You'll remember our needs, right? If we just go, batters first on the infield, we're considering maybe an upgrade at shortstop, and we're looking for a right-handed power bat. But in terms of just like top names available first, if we just go to batters, like the guys demanding the most money, Alec Boehm, Gavin Lux, Jazz Chisholm, Tyler O'Neill, all want 20 plus AAV. And then there's sort of a middle tier range where there's a lot of veterans and, guys who could maybe suit our needs. But if we just go infield first, I don't think we need another lefty in Gavin Lux, and at that price, definitely not. Same for Max Muncy. I think he could hit homers in our park, but I'm just not willing to do a 36-year-old third baseman, especially if we're already planning to move Termar to third. Jazz could feasibly play shortstop. As a captain personality, you like that, but it's another lefty in our lineup, and we just can't go all left, you guys. Like, it would be fun to bring on Jazz, but he wants big money. I'm not really willing to, spend that, and I don't think we can either, given we only have 17 mil available with our current scouting and player dev allocations. So like, I don't think he's on the table for us. J.P. Crawford, Yandy Diaz, they're both don't quite fit the needs. Yandy would, but he's old. Jonathan India is like maybe more interesting than Henry Davis as a DH. We only have average scouting on him, but he's pretty well-rounded, and he's going to get on base. He didn't hit many homers in KC last year, but I think he could bounce back to more closer to 2025 form, where he's a high OBP guy who can get some doubles. I don't know that I love the idea of bringing him on, but as a cheaper option, he could work. It's just we have to weigh if he's better than Henry Davis or not. And then Ha-Seong Kim is also interesting to me when I think about Peguero at shortstop, and like, do we trust Peguero to repeat his good season? I think Peguero is a better contact hitter than Ha-Seong, but obviously Ha-Seong has a better eye. And at only, sub 5 mil, that's like, his contract demands aren't too steep. I could talk myself into bringing him on board. His season last year, it looks like he was in Cleveland, where he hit a good amount of doubles. 13 homers is no slouch given his 45 grid power. So he, OPS 700, just right on league average with a 2.3 WAR. We've requested a new scouting report on him, and it's going to take a while, so he may get signed before we commit to him. But in terms of his shortstop defense, I'm looking, and he was actually below zone rating, like negative there. And Peguero was positive for us last year, so he may not even be the defender that Peguero is either. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think. He may be interesting if we can get him on a 1-year deal. I would consider that. And then this is the second baseman we touched on earlier from Japan, who we've also requested a scouting report on. In terms of 45 grade guys, I'm not going to go through all of these. I don't think I scouted anyone here. Like Ryan Mountcastle is here when we think about a righty DH bat, but he doesn't really bring the power I would want out of that. There's guys like Bryson Stott and Sosa here who, like, similar story. I just don't know that they're any better than like what we have with Peguero up the middle. So I'm kind of like, the market isn't great for infielders. Let me know what you think about India and Kim, but we may just end up sitting tight with what we have. In terms of outfielders, there are a couple of interesting names at the top. Nick Castellanos, you could consider for DH, 32 doubles and 21 homers last season in Detroit, so positive WRC plus, 700 OPS. Brings good splits. Like, he's not a total liability either side. The eye's just not there. But I could see him being the righty bat maybe we're looking for. Obviously, he is old, so there is a regression risk. And if we were to offer him a contract now, he's looking for long-term money, like a long-term tenure. So it would definitely require him sitting on the market for a bit and us to negotiate him down to convince him to come on board. Ian Happ is good. I just think he's out of our price range. Like the prospect of him at DH is interesting, but a switch hitter, again, like we have so many switch hitters. I guess you could say, like, if he were to linger on the market, it would be interesting to bring him on, but he's not as good as against lefties, and we were really weak against lefties last year. I'm kind of looking for, like, the righty bat who can hit both sides but really hit lefties as, like, our potential fill-in. The guy I kind of identified early was Austin Hayes here, who we only have average on, so we don't know that this is exactly who he is, but I like the gap power in our park, obviously, and he could even play left field, I think, potentially better than Brian Reynolds could. So that's also sort of factoring into his favor. He's better versus left, but still good against right. 15 homers last year, 40 doubles in Cincinnati. It's definitely more of a homer park there, but 791 OPS, 110 WRC plus. He could be interesting for us. I don't know that we would sign him to the money he's looking for here, obviously, but if we were able to kind of talk him down, it could be interesting. But again, I'm like torn, you guys, on if I want to lock somebody up for multi-year. Ideally, I think we're just looking for like a Band-Aid year or two contract. So Taylor Ward is also definitely someone we can look at. I don't love the 40 BABIP rating though against righties. But he would definitely be a more affordable option if assuming we're able to talk him down to like a 2 or 3 year deal. He could be interesting. And then in terms of 45 grade guys, I only scouted a couple, but Adolis Garcia, I think, could possibly be interesting. He's well known. He could play in the corner should we need, or we could even run him in right and Cruz in left. That's a possibility as well. Last year, 21 homers, OPS 787, 116 WRC plus. Like, even though he is 33, pushing 34, he's not totally washed. And his ratings are pretty consistent, both sides. So I could see us maybe looking into him, and he's much more reasonable to where I think we could talk him down to a manageable contract. But he's really kind of the only 45 grade guy I looked at. There's Jorge Soler and Andrew McCutchen, too. It would be funny to bring back McCutchen, obviously. But I mostly just scouted him as a joke. And then Soler is very similar to Taylor Ward. And, I don't know if we want to do that either. I'm not sure what kind of money he's definitely the cheapest of all of them, right? So maybe actually he does make some sense for us. But I guess consider if any of those guys wow you more so than Henry Davis does, because I'm still sort of in on Davis. I kind of just want to give him ABs to see if we can tap into more of the eye and the gap power. And he had a decent year for us last year in just 91 games. So over a larger sample, you're looking at maybe a 20 homer, 70 RBI guy. Just all things to consider there. I did want to look at pitching as well because, like I said, we're in need of, maybe 2 leverage arms, 2 leverage righties. And obviously at the top is the pitching prodigy we looked at earlier. But in addition to him, there's Aroldis Chapman back on the market, Sonny Gray, and Chris Sale, all looking for big money. The top reliever here, David Bednar's here as well, but we're probably not going to bring him back. So there are a couple guys I've already identified as potential solutions for us. We have Brian Abreu here, who spent time on both Texas and Houston last year. Was definitely better in Houston than he was in Texas. The issue with him is the walks being pretty high all the time. We've requested a scouting report. We're only average on him, but we can just kind of make a judgment based on his numbers that he ought to be pretty good with those pitches being his 80 grade, or even if they're in the 70s. You like him both sides here, so we think he could possibly be a good option at closer. And he's not all that expensive. I would happily sign a new closer for this deal here. So he's definitely one we're considering. Like I mentioned, this 22-year-old from Japan would be interesting to bring on, but I don't know that I would want to bet on him being our closer without the lack of strikeout stuff. I think he's more middle relief to set up. I'll scroll through other guys here. We're not really looking too hard at the lefty market. Camilo Duvall is here, and he's interesting, but don't love the side armor. The 40 control is like really bad. But the stuff is also like so electric. So like even though he's a sidearmer, lefties still kind of are below average at making contact. So he's like maybe interesting if some of the other options don't fall to us. He's on the cheaper end. And then guys like Joe Jimenez are just like super steady, right? 32. You know, he wants to be a closer, but his season last year was really bad in Cincinnati. So like maybe it doesn't make sense to bring him on either. And I also looked at his injury history, and he was dealing with rotator cuff stuff. So that sort of scares me a bit. So maybe not a good fit for us. And then Cole Sands here from the Twins is just very good across, the board. Good velo, 1.0 WAR on last season. Still with a lot of team control, and he's pretty solid both sides. So, maybe he makes sense as an addition. Also, AJ Puck here. If we were to bring on a new leverage lefty, like this would be awesome, right? Like look at all these pitches. And he had an awesome season last year for our division rival St. Louis. So if we were to like bump Ferguson back down to like lefty specialist, Puck could step in as a leverage reliever. And I just say that because his contract demands are like super reasonable. So, I said we weren't looking for a lefty, but that might make us a better team. So I could see us doing it. Justin Steele here, interesting. But, I'm not really looking at Luke Weaver so much this year. I think we missed our window on him, and now he's like risking regression. And then, there are some other 45 grade guys who I've scouted that I'm thinking like might just be good options to bring in on the 40 man, even if we're kind of like stashing them at AAA. Although JoJo could definitely serve as a lefty specialist for us for just $2 million. I may look to bring him on. But anyway, yeah, I like sort of purged all of the existing reliever contracts on our books. So we have like guys like Hunter Stratton and like Kyle Nicholas. I like removed all of those guys from our payroll, so we can bring on some new just organizational reliever depth. They got like guys we can call up and send down at will. So I'll likely look at some of those names we just scrolled over. But I think we're going to wrap the video here. I know it's, one of the shorter episodes we've done, or maybe it's run long, I don't know. But we haven't covered much game time. I did just want to give you all the opportunity to give your feedback and kind of shape how we handle things here. So let me know your thoughts about our thought process on the lineup and how we're going to move guys around. Like, what do you think we need? And then also in the pitching too, of those sort of leverage names we mentioned, who caught your eye and who might be good to bring in. So I'll be back soon with the next episode where we'll look to actually execute on all of those free agency signings. We'll do those and then move through international free agency as well, and then review our dev lab results all the way up until spring training. So lots of exciting things to look forward to in the next episode. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate your support in these videos, and I'll catch you in the next episode soon. So thanks.